So one of the
No, it's
things that
not
we
me.
did, accomplish. One of the things we did accomplish, we probably don't, we shouldn't certainly leave on the ground, is that we signed on a K4 Rally and Domination to be added to the alpha launch. When we get this alpha going live, it's not a single game, but there's probably be 4 experiences at this point that'll be live once we open it up to the public, and that's important, right? Because we want to. We want to test the handshaking, the passing from node to node, the orchestration, and not just it is a test, right, to orchestrate with a single game, but a better test to orchestrate over different experiences and find out how our orchestrator handles, getting a node to spin up both this game and the other game. Well,
Yeah.
much of what this alpha test is to get some metrics so that we know that
data.
our
And just let me hook into this, right? So
Please.
the reason we're doing this, because you see a lot of DePINs now launching with nodes, and they're doing fine, right? They're raising, of course, like millions and of dollars, but we are doing it quite differently, right? So rather than allocating some fixed pool of rewards in our treasury and saying, okay, we designate that pool specifically as rewards, and we will just freely hand that out. We actually look at this more like from a circulating perspective, right? So we want external money to have some inflow into the ecosystem and use that money to pay out the node operators. So it's
almost like an actual business.
Like an actual business that produces value, where the node operators actually get paid for useful work, right? So, that really sets us apart. I think as we're also making a lot of strides within DePIN, the DePIN industry by itself, it's quite a tiny ecosystem. So we're seeing like the same players popping up all over the place. It's quite interesting how the landscape by itself is evolving so rapidly. So there are now node as a service providers. You have dedicated blockchains. You have delegation contracts. You have data centers now also changing their model towards DePIN. It's really, really exciting and new, this space. And also together with Peak, we're actually like pushing kind of like on the front line of the industry what needs to be developed within the DePIN landscape as a whole. So we're in talks with all of those key foundational DePIN partners that are building the tech for tomorrow's future. And we're like setting out that roadmap going forward. So that's really exciting. And Rowan is also playing a very strong part in that. That Rowan is also like, okay, this doesn't exist yet. That's interesting. So let's develop it, right? And then we're pushing those first miles, and then we see all of those node as a service providers following us, and then also with Peak, of course, like the blockchain for DePINs is also incentivizing to make those moves going forward. So that's really exciting to be there.
So Andy and Rowan have been on those calls with those service groups, and I've never been able to sit. I've never even sat in on a single one. How do those calls go? You feeling like maybe Andy first and Rohan, but how do you feel like they're matching our initiative or our plans?
Wow. I think there's 2 types actually. I think there are ones that are just basically data centers that are providing a service, which effectively means they're going to run down the token revenues coming from whatever provider they're with, and then they're not going to be profitable anymore. In the same way that Jorik was talking about, some of these DePINs have fixed token. Eventually, you're going to run out of tokens, and eventually it's going to become unprofitable, and they're just going to stop existing. And then we've had other ones which I really like, and I'm sure Rowan's the same, but I think a lot of it comes down to the mindset of the individuals and the people that we're talking to. Some are looking at it very much like it's a cash grab. How do we make money? How do we make money fast? And other ones are like, right, okay, how do we redevelop what's happening in the world? And how do we, I'm sure you've all heard me say this loads of times. Michael Dell said there's something like we need 100 times the amount of data centers that we've got already. And that's pretty much only for AI. When we add in what we're doing, we need thousands of, GPUs, thousands of, PCs. And the people that think in the right way are going to be the big thinkers in the space. That's my opinion anyway. What do you think, Rowan?
Yeah, for this, like the calls that we have, the challenge is more, finding the right GPU and the GPU providers, right? and with the right configuration, so with sound card. And also currently they are more focused on providing for blockchains and like validators and all, which is like plug and play. But when we come up with our requirements, okay, no, we need this is, then it's a step back for them. Okay, we'll think about it and we'll get back. So yeah, there's a lot of back and forth, but I would say it is going in a positive direction. So yeah, they are also excited. And then yeah, a lot of conversations then we have about like Yurik mentioned about delegation contract and undelegate, and then rewards, and what type of games that you will be hosting, and then sound card and all. So yeah.
So we've got a number of questions that are popping up. I'm going to jump through where they make sense in the conversation if I can. And we just had one calling out that Yorick got his haircut, and yeah, he did. Now the rock star career is gone. So it looks good. But we just came up with this question: can you explain why data centers are less attractive to run these nodes compared to the actual random nodes of a user? But basically, what they're saying is self-hosting. Why is self-hosting better than a data center? Though even the data centers, they're helpful to us, in some ways. I'll throw it to you, Ron, since you were already kind of in that area. What about the difference of the two setups, and why is ultimately the self-hosting the better option for us long term, but doesn't necessarily have to be at the beginning?
Yeah, there are many aspects to it. So first is the latency, right? So for self-hosted, so data centers are more centralized, right, in a way. And then self-hosted is like we tell them, okay, the nodes are going to be on different locations, and then the latency would be reduced in that aspect. So that is one. And then of course the rewards are more for self-hosted, because for delegated or for data centers, you don't need to pay for the nodes per itself, because you have the node and then you are using the self-hosted part of it. So the rewards are definitely higher in that sense. So that is of course enticing, and then long term it is a good approach, definitely.
Yeah, so indeed for self-hosted, you only pay for the electricity costs, which scale proportionally to how your system is being utilized on a network, right? So when the network activity is low, you also pay a lower fee in terms of electricity. And the general electricity fee is, of course, lower than renting a GPU. When you're renting a GPU from some NAS provider, you're paying a fixed fee. Right, so that fixed fee could actually be higher than your rewards on your node. So there is this risk part attached to it. Now, usually that wouldn't, of course, be the case, because we're adding all of these optimizations on top of the compute they provide, and we directly interact with our clients. So there's this value markup. So like in general, you make a lot of profit on your node, but if the node is running no sessions at all, on a delegated node, it would be running at a loss, right? So even with the minimum payout involved, which is not the case when you're going for entirely self-hosted. You will never make a loss.
And then what we like about the idea that the having these partners like IO.net helps us with scaling immediately in the short term, but ultimately having the self-hosted devices and the hardware out there helps us scale and reach it helps us scale both regionally, and then again, as people upgrade their home systems, they're upgrading our network. So we have the upgrade cycle is kind of again much easier for us to get the system to run even better each time, right?
So Leaf also asked a question, by the way.
Yeah, she did. So the question was asked: when do the nodes go live, and are we offering hardware? Yeah, I think that kind of leads us into the what's ahead conversation that I think, Ron, I got you flagged to start us with the talk about the alpha test, and that'll get to the question of when the nodes go live and when can we offer hardware.
Sure. Yeah. So like as Jeff mentioned earlier as well, like what we are planning is like to divide this test net into 3 different waves. So first is like the first wave that we plan to launch is around January. So there we plan to launch a game as well as around 15 nodes. So in the background we are working on a lot of aspects, right? First is like deploying the right game, then deploying it on different nodes, then checking the stats of how the game is running. then doing all the orchestration in the background as well. Like if a player comes and tries to join from Netherlands, and then that the player should be connected to the nearest possible node in the Netherlands. Then if someone joins from Asia, that is also one thing. So the orchestrator that we've been working on for like a couple of months now. So and this is the time that we want to test that as well, and then gradually take it to the next steps by adding more nodes and more games to it, and then we expand it to our community as well for them to test it out as well. So I think that's the plan. So this is more of gathering as much as data as possible, and then testing it out, and then defining the next steps as well. Okay, what is working out and what do we need to improve on?
Yeah. So the way that we've kind of talked through how to do these test waves is the first wave, about a dozen people. We have all those machines be very similar to each other, so it mitigates not having a lot of risk. We're not adding a lot of trying to hit many different GPUs, and just kind of keep them similar because we want to get that first 12 up and running. When that is up and running and stable, then we add in another 12, and this one will maybe have some AMD graphics cards. We'll try some different configurations to test to see what happens when we add a new variable. But you only really, when you do these tests, you only want to add a single variable, or as little variables as possible between each set. And then after we've got those 24 now up and stable, we go to add another 24, so it gets up to 48 or close to 50. And then again, we're covering more regions. We'll have some more variations in there. Now we could go live, and one of the plans I offered up to the team is we could go live after the first 12 are up and stable. We could make one of the games go live to the community, and that could happen as early as January. And if that works, and it's all stable, then we could jump in and start delegating at that point. Right? So while we have two streams going, the second 12 that have some variations, AMDs and all that could be running. They could be running one version of the game. Well, the live version of the game is open, available on the first 12 plus delegated nodes. So that can happen. We could, and there's a lot of arguments for making it happen. We go live with an open alpha, right?
YOM.